How's it going, real dealers? It's your man Philip Hall, and before we begin today's podcast, I want to give a huge shout out to our peeps over at Men's Trends. Men's Trends is a new clothing line on the market that specializes in the best workout attire for your next quarantine workout or gym workout wherever you are. Make sure to go follow them on Instagram at Men's Trends and also check out their line on menstrends.com. Make sure to use our code The Real Deal for you to get 25% off on your next purchase. Stay fit, stay strong, and always keep it real. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. How's it going, real dealers? It is your man Philip Hall, and welcome to another episode. Yep, and Terrell Bird, my man Terrell, he is back, like another half of the Real Deal Bros. He is back on the Real Deal Bros podcast. This is episode.
Yes, sorry for going missing on you, man. It's been a busy few weeks for me trying to make the moves happen. You know what I'm saying? So,
Hey, man, it's all good. It's all good, man. But yeah, this is episode number 8 of the Real Deal Bros podcast. And yeah, of course, we got our other half of the Real Deal Bros, Terrell Bird, back from his long-awaited hiatus. But yeah, he's back on. Definitely glad to have my other Real Deal Bro back on. And yeah,
good
man.
to see you again right away, man.
Yeah. And yeah, man, this really been a crazy week going on like these past 2 weeks. Yeah, it's been like insane, dude. Just with the George Floyd incident, just also the Black Lives Matter movement that's been happening nationwide and around the world is definitely really opening a lot of eyes to people that haven't really been paying attention to racism that much, and even with people just coming out and speaking about racism, like for some people it's the first time just talking about these things, because there's been a lot of leaders in the world that have been keeping quiet about these situations that pop up, and
including Lebanon.
Yeah, even countries that don't really speak much about racism or about just inequality, they're starting to come out more. There's people in these countries that are also protesting, and it's definitely really this. I feel like right now this is like the biggest movement or biggest civil rights movement that I've seen in a while. I mean, you go back to the abolishment of slavery, you go back to the Jim Crow era, and it's like the civil rights era. It's just so much that's taking place right now. I feel like this is like the 2020 or like the modern day version of what Dr. King marched for and what Malcolm X spoke about, and what Nelson Mandela was speaking about too. I mean, there's just so much that's been going on in this country like for the past few weeks in regards to social injustice. And yeah, but I feel like just what I've been seeing, there is going to be a lot of change, and I've been seeing a lot of progress that's being made in these protests that are going around the country, and just all these people speaking about social injustice and just giving their thoughts on how they feel about the George Floyd incident that took place in Minneapolis a week ago. And yeah.
And that was a really unfortunate event that was completely unnecessary.
Oh,
and the fact that he had a daughter hurts me the most. It wounds me deeply, because no child should ever grow up without a father. I mean, that's the reason why you have parents, And I'm not saying that there aren't other children who feels that pain and who doesn't feel that pain, but the point I'm trying to make is you should have humanity and then get shit done, but have some humanity in the process. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then there are older people saying to the kids who are protesting peacefully protesting, even though there is rioting going on, but peacefully protesting nonetheless, who are the real ones actually on the front line getting shit done. Like, no one else is going to do it. And a friend of mine, he even participates in it. He said, if I don't do it, who will?
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's really what's being valued right now. I mean, like, like for those that follow me on Instagram, you saw the post of me, holding hands with my mom. Like earlier this week, there was a solidarity march for George Floyd that happened here in Oakland, and it was probably, like, they said that it was about 16,000 people that showed up to that protest march, and
it was 17,000. They left that out, just for the record, only because the media didn't want to fan the flame.
Like, I mean, I feel like the media, because like later that night, actually, when me and my mom, when we came back home, I turned on the news just to see like the rest of the protests and how it went. And what really shocked me is that some channels, they only showed the negative side. They only showed like rioters and looters, but not the whole protest. And I was I was really upset by that, because they left out one thing that the media should be covering, and that's like the positive side of the protest, and not so much the negative side.
And on that, excuse me. And on that note, I think I may have struck a nerve with the Army and the National Guard, because I was starting to see, soldiers actually participating with the protesters and trying to let them know that they come in peace, but they're also here to hold the line just in case things get out of hand. And a few things gotten out of hand, and they were able to contain it. So I respect them for that. And to my brother, Santiago Romero, love you, buddy, second lieutenant. Stay safe out there.
I gotta give respect to those those people in uniform that have been doing the right thing. Like whether it's marching with protesters,
Absolutely.
like kneeling with protesters, or just showing like some sign of peace toward protesters. I feel like those are the people that need to be highlighted more by the media, instead of the police officers that are like beating up on protesters, or and what was even crazy, like I've heard in like certain cities, there's police officers that are actually like the suspects that have been starting riots and starting looting. Like they're going around stores, smashing windows, and kind of encouraging people to like say, hey, come grab stuff, like, hey, like this stuff is free now, come and grab it. And I'm like, nah, like that's not the way to do it.
And here's another thing I found interesting, and that the media refused to cover. The how they call troublemakers, those inciters. Some of them actually worked for the police force, believe it or not. And that's what really gets me the most. I'm thinking, oh, so they tried to fan the flames. Okay, they tried to add fuel to the fire, but it didn't work. It did not work. Notice that.
Yeah,
I noticed there are even gang members starting to unite. And that's like, wow. And that's major. You really know things are bad if you have gang members coming together. Like even the Amish, of all people, started to like chime in. How bad has this country screwed up if you got the Amish and all gang members across the country starting to unite?
Man, it's like that's the crazy part. Like so much stuff had to happen where you had to bring like I remember there was this one clip I saw. There was like this. I remember this one clip I saw. There's this guy in a Batman suit. He came out and protested. And then like you said, the Amish are protesting. Like even like well-known gangs are starting to unite and come together. I mean, like that kind of, because all this really reminds me of what happened to Rodney King back in 1991. Like when the Rodney King incident happened, and then like a year later when the verdict was announced that the police officers were not guilty of brutality, and then like the whole city.
And my father was there during that time. He can actually tell me a story about what really happened.
Yeah, and like even with that, like you had the Crips and the Bloods, they were coming together, and
that's what shocked me the most.
Yeah,
shout out to you, by the way. Much respect for doing something so brave. I mean, damn.
Yeah. Like all that's been going on, I feel like not only is it just people coming out, like you have well-known celebrities, you have music artists coming out about, you have community leaders coming out about, but you also have some athletes that are also speaking out about this. But the sport
including LeBron James.
Shout out to LeBron. Shout out to like all the other athletes that are speaking out about the George Floyd incident and giving their perspective on social justice.
And including J. Cole. Even J. Cole decided to participate, including Nick Cannon, Keke Palmer. I believe Travis Scott participated. Wait, no, I don't recall Travis Scott being there. I don't recall, but I could be wrong. But
yeah, like there's been some celebrities marching out in the streets for protests. I think that's very powerful, and just knowing how much they contribute to society, and really just the pop culture aspect of America. and just the fact that they don't feel as vulnerable to go out and march in the streets with protesters or to even speak about it on their social media, definitely shows that they're not just the rich and like artists or like athletes that you see. They're also like they're human. Like, and I speak about this all the time. Like when
Mm-hmm.
I don't think of athletes as robots. Think of them as human because they do, like, even though, like, yeah, they make a lot of money, they're on camera all the time and they have these very extravagant jobs. They still have to live human life as an American. They have to pay bills. They have families. They have to put food on the table. They have to drive their kids to school. Like, they do everything that everyday civilians do, but they just do it in a much more
sophisticated way.
the correct word would be sophisticated way. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it is good to have those type of people to speak out about these things. But
Mm-hmm.
the one sport that I really want to highlight with this and is NASCAR. And
NASCAR, most definitely. I think Kyle Busch, spoke out about this, and he says, what's happening. I'm paraphrasing what he said because I don't know how he would feel if I, repeated what he said exactly. So I'm going to paraphrase it. What's happening in this country, it's wrong. Everybody is a human being and has the right to life. What happened to Mr. Floyd and to his family was totally inhumane. It was not necessary. So it feels good to see like everyone coming together, standing peacefully, and at least trying to mitigate the damage.
mhm,
You know?
yeah, but and I feel like with how NASCAR is, and there's probably people that are gonna watch this or see this how this video. I'm like, oh, NASCAR, like what's the word? Two black guys doing talking about NASCAR because they know because
Because we
like
love NASCAR,
obviously
man.
NASCAR right now in America still has that label of being like a white sport, like sport for rednecks, racist sport, but the truth about it is that there is some diverse faces in the sport. I mean, like you could date back to us, like
Mm-hmm.
like for like I guess I could start
Wendell
off.
Scott,
Yeah, you can start with Wendell Scott, Bill Lester, like Willie T.
Bubba
Richardson.
Wallace.
Yeah, Bubba Wallace, our current driver right now of African American descent. Really
I
the
mean, the list can go on and
only
on.
driver right now. And yeah, but yeah, I feel like from a fan perspective, I kind of haven't really gotten that sense of racism in NASCAR per se because like me being from California and California being like a very like liberal or liberal state, and like yeah, NASCAR only comes to California. Well, now like they only come 2 times a year. They hold a race at Owl Club Speedway down in Fontana, California, and of course they also host a race at Sonoma Raceway, which is like about a couple hours away from me. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I've been to races before, like with my dad, just growing up, and I never really had that sense of racism. But again, like you also have to think at the time, like I was very little, and I couldn't, I was
Mm-hmm.
at an age where I couldn't even spell racism, or I didn't really pay attention to it that much. But as I've
Yeah,
grown
because all
older,
you knew was just NASCAR and just go out and play. I mean, that's
exactly,
all. That's what we all do.
exactly, yeah, and I
And
feel like yeah, as a kid, as a white kid growing up in America, like when you're like really little, it just started coming up, you don't really think about racism. That's not what's on your mind. But as you grow older and
mm-hmm.
see all the problems that are happening within the country, you start to put into perspective, like, yeah, why do people like see me as an issue, or why do like what when why do like white people or why do people of other color look at me funny, and and yeah, just it's really about maturing and understanding of the social issues that every black person in America has had to face, just because of the color of their skin.
Mm-hmm.
But I
And I
don't
want to
find it.
cover another. I want to cover another motorsport. You're a fan of dirt bikes, right?
Oh
I
yeah,
love dirt.
definitely. Oh yeah, definitely.
Biking is awesome. And my favorite dirt bike racer is James Stewart Jr.
Heard about him. Heard about him.
He is awesome. Like his skill is unlike any other. I mean, I know he probably, might watch this and think, well, what have I done? I haven't really spoken anything about this. Well, from one individual to another, I see him for the greatness entirely. And I feel like the rest of the country should see greatness within each other, and maybe we might not clash as much. But it's going to take some time. Like I said, you know, trying to get reform is going to be no easy feat. It's not going to be easy. I mean, there will be challenges like this one.
Mm-hmm.
Like what's going on currently, that's a challenge. But that doesn't mean it's going to set us back 300 years.
Yeah. Yeah, like I also kind of want to highlight Lewis Hamilton too, like Formula One driver. Uh, like I
Mm-hmm.
think, like from what I've been seeing, because I follow these guys on Instagram, and I'm like I'm scrolling through seeing like like what they've been saying, and I think really Lewis Hamilton was the first race car driver that like actually spoke out about it. I think it took Bubba Wallace kind of a minute to understand or try to figure out what he was going to say to the media, but but I feel like he's been doing it in the right way, because like I remember like this whole week I've been seeing Bubba Wallace on interviews like on NASCAR Race Up or on NASCAR America, and people like even other drivers in NASCAR, they've been coming to him to talk about this whole issue. I remember like that video that I sent you like a few days ago when Ty Dillon,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, when Ty Dillon, when he came to Bubba Wallace talking about like like his experience, or like having a chat about his experience growing up in racing and having to deal with racism pretty much his whole career. And and what Ty Dillon really emphasized was that he learned a lot from speaking with Bubba Wallace about what was like being racist, because like obviously Ty Dillon is a white driver, but again
Mm-hmm.
he's
But
also
still a good driver.
oh he's good. He's got some talent. It's just he's also the type of person that's willing to open up about topics such as this. And even like drivers like Jimmy Johnson or Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott, and a few other drivers out there, they've been coming to Bubba Wallace and saying like, hey man, like even though I'm not black, or I didn't grow up having to deal with racism in my whole career in racing, what should I do to show awareness, or to talk about and come out about these things that are happening in the country. And I feel like, yeah, that's one thing you got to highlight too. And I think another thing I want to add on to that is that I remember I was watching an interview. I think Dale Earnhardt Jr. He had Bubba Wallace on his podcast a few days ago, and
I
Bubba
saw
Wallace.
that.
Oh yeah, you saw that
Yeah,
one.
that was a really interesting talk.
Yeah, it
It
was it
was
was
very interesting.
it was crazy because what Bubba Wallace said, he actually spoke out about the experience about that he had about his cousin being murdered by a police officer. And and just knowing that he's had that experience growing up, where he's had somebody in his family that has been a victim of police brutality. And it get like, and that caught me off guard. Like that surprised me, because I was thinking, well, I thought Wallace, he came from like no well-to-do like black family, but it turns out that he's had that same experience that like a lot of other black African Americans in America have had. They've had a they've had a family member that's been a victim of police brutality, or if they had like a very close friend that's been a victim of police brutality. And just him speaking about that, especially with none of us having any knowledge of that, I mean, it definitely shows that, man, this is the guy that NASCAR needs to go to when it comes to social injustice.
Absolutely. And on that note, he also spoke out about how it not only hurts, but it also hurts to see how police brutality can just go unscathed.
Mm-hmm.
How most people can just get a tap on the wrist and just say, "Oh, it was self-defense," or "Oh, there was a very special factor," when it was actually just murder. And as a Black NASCAR fan, I'm actually glad he brought those points up, because not many people talk about this, and they're too afraid to just bring it up. I mean, our First Amendment is free speech,
Mm-hmm.
is it not? So if you have enough free speech to talk about everything else, why couldn't you bring those points up? Why couldn't you bring those very important aspects about this nation into light?
Yeah,
That's the real question I have.
again, it dates back to the vulnerability that most athletes have. There are certain like even athletes of color, like they're very vulnerable to situations involving social injustice that, it's hard for them to speak out about, because again, you got one side that agrees with him, and then you got another side that may not disagree with him. And I'll even use this as an example. Like you probably heard what happened with Drew Brees, right?
Yep, I heard about it.
Oh yeah,
I
Drew
think he
Brees.
did the right thing.
Yeah,
I mean, he didn't harm anyone.
I mean, well, like Drew Brees, he did kind of like. Well, actually, no. I just found out today that he actually did issue an apology on his Instagram, saying that he owned up to what he said. But for those that don't know, about yesterday or like a few days ago, Drew Brees said on social media, or said to a few news outlets, saying that, oh, like I never agreed with anybody. Like this is paraphrasing. I'm not saying, I don't know what he said exactly verbatim, but
Mhm.
he said something that was in relation to, oh, I don't disagree. I disagree with people that kneel against the flag, or kneel whenever the national anthem is playing, because he had people in his family, like his great grandfather. He fought in World War II, and he's had other people in his family that came up through the military, and he finds it disrespectful when he sees, like, other players in the NFL kneeling against the flag. But at the same time, I felt like, yeah, it's okay if you say those things, but this wasn't the time to say that, because like it was like, like it's okay to have your own
Mhm.
opinion, but it's the wrong time to be having your own opinion about things like that, because
And
what's going to happen is that the focus is going to get shifted on you, and people are going to be, looking at you and criticizing you, and saying like, oh, how can you say that, especially with what's going on in the country.
absolutely. And here's what I meant when I said he did the right thing. He did the right thing by first off writing off an apology, by issuing his apology. He
Mm-hmm.
did that. Now, I'm not saying that he did the right thing by trying to save face. Now, that was a given. So I say what he has going on, he had it coming when he was trying to save face. I mean, come on. That he was a little out of pocket.
Yeah,
A little bit.
it was.
A little out of pocket. I'm not saying that he was just full blown disrespectful. I mean, I can understand his family history. I mean, it's okay. I can understand why he would say that. But the point is, dude, don't say something like that in a time of turbulence.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't say it. There's a time for everything. And the time to say that, that was the completely wrong time. And honestly, even me growing up, and I'm going to be 20 very soon, I've learned that you have to know better. And as a grown man, from one grown man to another, you should know better, dude. I'm just going to say that right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that
And
goes for anybody who wants to bring up those points.
yeah.
There's a time and place for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Hold your tongue. It's okay. I know it may irk you a little bit, but you just don't say that, especially when people were already, kind of grieving, angry, upset, confused, fearful about 2020 and what's been going on, and this injustice just keeps happening time and time again. You don't say anything of the sorts. If you're gonna agree with someone, agree with them. Don't just do it for the media or social media. Don't do that. Agree with them because you know you're a human being as well.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like, I feel like, Drew Brees, he kind of let his pride get the best of him at that moment.
Absolutely.
And of him, like, being in the NFL, like, NFL is already a predominantly black sports league, and knowing that, with him playing on the New Orleans Saints, like, that's like, New Orleans is a city of predominantly black people, so most of that fan base is already black. And you also,
Hmm.
like, your his coaches and teammates, most of them are black. And knowing that Drew Brees, he's the star player of the Saints, and is just the star player and kind of like the face of New Orleans, it really sets a bad precedent on who he is, and him holding on to his values so deeply, especially around this time. And like, yeah, like, again, like, you have to, like, he owned up to it. He said he was wrong. He said
Hmm.
what he said wasn't very insensitive, especially with what's going on.
Hmm.
He's willing to stand behind the black community as much as he can. But again,
And that's very brave of him to do, to admit that he was wrong. Not every man does that.
oh yeah,
You know, I mean, some of us guys, we're gonna like try to really prove that we're right because it's our pride. And it's a little bit of an ego issue, but sometimes we gotta real men put their pride to the side and admit to what's going on, to what's really going on behind the scenes. And I'm actually glad he did that.
Yeah, for the past few days, I thought like, oh man, if he keeps this up, he's gonna get canceled, and like, it might lead into one thing. It might
take him out of the season if he kept that up.
Like, like he cleaned up his mess. Like that's all that matters. He cleaned it up.
And he was very discreet. That's what really impressed me. He didn't make it like a full-blown media issue. Because that would have been a catastrophe, not only for him, but for his family as well. Like to the legacy,
Yeah. I mean, it dates back to, kind of going back in the NASCAR bit, again, like a few months back when the Kyle Larson fiasco happened, when he said the N-word on, this is back when NASCAR was still doing iRacing to kind of, still bring out more content since racing was on hold for a few months. And, Kyle Larson going back saying the N-word on an iRacing stream and him being canceled, pretty much canceled by the NASCAR world. It kind of set that, title of NASCAR, like, oh, NASCAR still racist. But I feel like with so many drivers starting to speak out more about social injustice and kind of breaking out that shell of vulnerability, because and I see it a lot. I mean, I've been watching NASCAR since I was a little baby, and it's rare when I see like drivers now speaking about social injustice. But again, I feel like with the sport starting to become more open to diversity and like there's a lot of there's a lot more people of color starting to come into the sport as much. I mean, like we've had a Mexican driver, we had a Colombian driver, like now we have a black driver, and just the sport starting to come out more and starting to be more diverse down the line, and it's going to be diverse more in the future. I mean, I know drivers of color that are coming up, and I feel like have a pretty good shot at racing in the Cup Series, and and I just feel like with what Bubba Wallace has been doing and what he's been saying, and even like him, like I feel like as a black driver, he kind of I almost thought that NASCAR wasn't going to say anything about it, but NASCAR proved me wrong. Even though we may not be seen as a very diverse sport, or our fan base may still be very conservative, we're still a organized sports organization that's still willing to speak out about social injustice. And with NASCAR posting their little message, a message that all other sport leagues and other sports teams have been posting about the George Floyd incident, it definitely should give NASCAR a little bit more respect as far as speaking out about these topics and using Bubba Wallace as an ambassador, as an activist on social injustice in sports as well as in society. And I just feel like, this is kind of his moment, and
And I think that I'm actually glad that Bubba Wallace was speaking out against this, because as a black NASCAR fan, I was actually kind of wondering if, the overall NASCAR world was going to chime in on it. And it shocked me. It really shocked me.
I was wondering that too.
I was like, well, what are they going to say? Hopefully it won't be anything wrong. Because I was kind of holding my breath a little bit. I was like, But then when he started to bring up valid points and really valid arguments, even I couldn't challenge, I thought, oh, wow. Yeah, that's true. And what I really liked was, in his conversations, how they were both agreeing. They weren't really trying to argue with each other. They both gave different viewpoints from their perspectives, and everything started to come together. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This was the Ty Dillon and Bubba Wallace chat that you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
I watched that chat, and and I definitely appreciate that there are some drivers that are coming out about it, and because to be honest, the white drivers that you see, I feel like if they're white, they're probably not going to feel the need to speak out about it. But the fact that they're kind of, having to speak out about it, because again, like you've seen the protest on TV, you're seeing like white, black, Mexican, Asian, and a lot of other ethnicities coming together, speaking about like this whole issue. And I also want to go back to what George Floyd's daughter said. Like what George Floyd's daughter said, that my daddy changed the world. And I feel like this, like he actually did. Like, yeah, like, I mean,
Really did.
rest in peace, George Floyd. But man, like that guy, like just what happened to him, and just having him being another victim is already kind of putting in place of what we'll expect in the future. Like we're gonna expect stricter laws on police officers if their intent is to kill black people, and we're like they're also gonna be coming down on harder if they are, using their badge and their gun for granted, as far as like showing like racial discrimination and just showing injustice toward people of color.
And on that note, even the UK is starting to crack down on it. I'm thinking,
I mean, the UK, like the UK already have strict gun laws, and they don't play.
Yeah, but with the law, with people who participate in the law organization, they're really cracking down on even political officials, which I just found out about. And my friend who's back in Chattingham, which is in England, he told me that the protest has escalated to a whole nother level. And one of his friends had a sign that says the UK is not innocent either. So historically speaking, they've been known to have this kind of problem for many years.
Oh yeah.
And now that George Floyd, please forgive me, and may you rest in peace, has passed on, the world has just basically cracked and said, enough. Not again. And that's what amazed me the most. I felt like everybody who's actually coming in, they're really young. Like they're your age and mine, if not younger. And I'm actually, having a hard time understanding of why now.
Yeah, and and especially with the leaders having the they're going to be the ones to sign off on this petition, and I was actually having a conversation with one of my professors yesterday, and like we were talking about the George Floyd incident, and she gave her take, and I gave mine, and I feel like for people that are showing anger at these protests, and really really the people that are showing the most anger are the rioters and the looters. But for what I say to those rioters and those looters, don't show your anger by breaking windows or by stealing stuff that isn't yours, or by trying to beat up on police officers. Show your anger by going out and voting. I mean, I'll say this: the one mistake that America allowed us people to do is to give us the right to vote. That's because in some other countries they don't do that. They don't have like a democratic government that allows you to vote somebody into office. I mean, it's really by just like upbringing, like your legs. I mean, like the UK, for example, like they never had a vote, like a process of voting. They always had a parliament. Now, I'm not saying that there's nothing wrong with parliament. I mean, hey, like if that's how you want to run your country, go ahead. But again, don't, like, when these issues like this pop up, don't show your anger by going out and destroying stuff. Go show your anger by voting the right guy or the right woman in office.
And use the system to your advantage as well. Use your ability to articulate your thoughts, and use the pen, because the pen is mightier than the sword. And I also noticed, with social media, I mean, there are so many platforms to spread the word on everything that's going on. So if you're going to be angry, use your anger in the right way.
Exactly. That's all we're trying to say. Because this whole week, I've been seeing social media, people that I know on social media been able to spread awareness by, hey, like, go sign this petition, or hey, donate money to this relief fund for George Floyd, or to Breonna Taylor, or, Sandra Bland, or like, or any victim of police brutality. Go donate to these fundraisers that are going on. And even like for the small businesses, or the local shops, or the black owned businesses in certain cities that were destroyed by the riots and the looters. I mean, to be honest, like that like the rioting and the looting kind of added salt to the wound to these black owned businesses and these like small local businesses, because COVID-19 has really been hitting them hard. But but again, like rioting and the looting, that's been adding salt to the wound to their financial woes during COVID-19. And the fact, I also want to bring that up too. The fact that people are willing to protest during a pandemic, I mean, that shows power. I mean, people are risking their health to go out and march in these streets, hold up signs, and chant "I can't breathe," even in a pandemic. I mean, if that doesn't send a bigger message, I don't know what will.
And here's the thing. Here's a question that I have: Wouldn't the coronavirus spread only through droplets from an infected person if they sneezed or coughed? Because I'm pretty certain it can't be spread through touch, only through moisture.
And like, even with that, like, people are still wearing masks at these protests, and they're still practicing 6 feet. But like, I don't know. I don't know if I can say that for everybody. I don't think everybody's been practicing the 6 feet thing, but they've been still.
I mean, they've been making the attempts,
yeah. I mean, like they're trying to, but again, like the large number, the large number of people that are coming to these protests, it's kind of hard to social distance, because again, like the 17,000 people that showed up in Oakland for the Solidarity March earlier this week. I mean, there was a big crowd, but again, it was hard for us to kind of social distancing. But again, like me and my mom, we were trying to do our best to try to social distance. But again, like, it's like there are people still, being aware of the other big issue that's happening in the world, while still trying to fight the good fight. So we gotta give props to those people as well.
And props to the youth too. I mean,
oh yeah.
I gotta give them credit. I mean, you're arguing against everything your family has tried to your family has tried to teach you, and you're saying, well, no, that's wrong. They're finally using the ability to question what they have been taught.
Actually, no. I actually kind of left out one thing about the protests that happened on Monday in Oakland. Well, the one thing I actually left out is that protest that was organized, it was actually organized by youth. Like, I think, like, man, I forgot the dude's name, but the guy that organized the protest and that was like issuing flyers and telling people to spread the word, he's actually from Oakland, and he's a first-year student at UCLA. And yeah, like he's also even had other people from that go to high school here in Oakland, like come up to the podium and kind of give their piece and tell people, hey, this needs to stop. And like, yeah, I'm glad everybody's coming out to protest. And I mean, it was organized by the youth, which is very powerful. And on top of that, they were putting a huge emphasis on telling people, hey, we're here to have a peaceful protest. So for anybody that's thinking about going out rioting and looting, don't do it, because we're here to have a peaceful protest and not destroy stuff. And like the fact that it was well organized and the youth actually put all this together in a short amount of time, it definitely shows the rising generation that is going to be present in this country in the years to come.
Absolutely. I mean, you even have NASCAR stepping in now, and I'm thinking this is gonna be great.
Yeah, definitely. And and like even with other.
And the fact that Kyle Busch is going to be stepping in. I mean, it's gonna be some real interesting results, I gotta admit.
Yeah, and like even with like the sports world speaking out about this, there's. Everybody's got to have a say in this. I mean, this isn't a, like, I remember one person said, this isn't really a black person issue. It's more of a world issue.
Yeah.
And on some.
And I was just about to say, it's not really a race thing. It's a people thing, because some people just fail to progress. In some terms, it is more than a black versus white issue. This is about people.
because there's been times where there's been other ethnicities they've clashed with, like, giving racism to a different race, and there hasn't been like a worldwide movement about it. But again, I felt like just with George Floyd and just the impact that he's had, like his post-humanistic impact that he's had is definitely putting into the eyes that, well, yeah, like there are things that need to change. And the fact that people, like black people in this country, living off the 400 years of some form of slavery, there's going to be change. Like I know there's going to be change. Then like me and you being two black college students, like we're already seeing the change with our own eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if we decide to have children, we might as well just tell the story like it is. Like, hey,
Right.
this happened, and this is what took place.
Yeah, and it's my prayer that, like, when like by the time I have kids and by the time I'm raising my family, that my kids won't have to experience the stuff that me and you are experiencing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I would hate to see my kids, like, go to school and come home and saying like telling me like, oh, there's this kid that called me the N-word. I mean, like, I would be devastated if my kids told me that. And knowing that I've grown up in that era where I've had to hear that word spoken to me in a very derogative term. I mean, like, yeah, again, like I want this to be the protest to end all protests toward police brutality and towards social injustice. Yeah, this has to be the one, because there's been so many of them that, like, we're in 2020, like this has to be the one that ends it all.
Absolutely.
Like,
and there's even like different organizations that are predominantly African American, such as the NAACP and NAGA, NAAGA, which NAGA is the National African American Gun Association. They're even putting in their input on, this violence has to stop. It has to. It's 2020. There's no place for that here. And it not only, tries to give its input on being peaceful, but it also says, we also have a right to the Second Amendment as well. So if we were to take advantage of the Second Amendment right now, would that change society in 2020?
Oh, it probably would. I mean, yeah, I think what scares a white person more is seeing a black person with a gun. I mean, like, yeah, that's I mean, like, that's already been seen, and the result of that is because we're never the ones that fire the first shot, and
that brings up my point.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you make a valid point there. Yeah,
and that brings up my point. I mean, you can't really expect a certain group of people to try to just shrug off what happened and handle it later. No. You see, we're a different kind of group. We're a different generation. Now, I don't know what the last generation has taught the world, but this generation is teaching, you come at us, we come at you. So if it's a ricochet effect, do not be offended, because we have the right to defend ourselves both peacefully and non-peacefully. Now, I'm not saying that everybody should just go grab a gun and, start wreaking havoc. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm simply saying that enough is enough.
There's a limit.
And you should know better that there's a limit to what you can do and what your conduct will lead you to. And, we also have kids in our generation that are growing up saying this, and it makes me feel sorry for them in a way, because, there have been countless people who worked so hard to, try to make this situation to almost non-existent. And now that it's happening again, it's just a massive boom of protest and Second Amendment. I mean, good grief.
Again, like, I saw that all 50 states and 18 different countries were involved in this protest. Although, like I said before, this has to be the one that that this has to be the protest that ends
Of all protests.
This has to be the one. I don't care if I mean, I don't care if we have to get another president. I don't care if we have to, do everything that we're told to do when we go out and protest. All I'm just saying is, once all of this is over, and once these petitions get agreed on by Congress, and when there's like these state legislators like pass these legislative orders for police departments, and a lot of organizations that are that's suspects of social injustice. Once this protest is over, and once this movement has come to a conclusion, this has to be no more. I don't want to see, after this is over, I don't want to see another George Floyd, another Breonna Taylor, another Sandra Bland, another Trayvon Martin incident ever again.
Not another Eric Garner either.
Yeah, not another Eric Garner either. None of it ever again. Think of the past, put it in the books, end it all.
And let this be the moment to mark down in history as well. Especially for all of us college kids. I mean, this is something that's way out of the woodwork. First, we had to move out of our dorms at the last minute, and now this.
Yeah, I mean, once the country started to relax on the COVID-19 guidelines, staying the 6 feet and social distancing, and restaurants being reopening again, it shocks me that what happened to George Floyd is the first thing that I see when the country is starting to reopen slowly. I mean, I don't know. I guess I guess racism was kind of like being locked up in a house, and once it gets back out, George Floyd is the first victim. Hopefully the first victim and the last victim of racism.
The very last.
Yeah, the very last.
And and along those notes, to be a Black NASCAR fan is like being a unicorn.
Oh yeah, we're almost kind of like a
endangered species.
Yeah, we're kind of like a mythical creature. We're like a mythical creature. People want to believe it, but they can't see it. And
I don't think anybody thought that it would be possible either. Like, what? You're a Black NASCAR fan? How? Wait, where did you grow up?
Yeah, I know.
Same neighborhood as everybody else.
It was funny because I know coming up in high school, I don't think people really knew that I liked NASCAR a lot, because high school, I was growing up playing baseball, and I would spend my springs and my summers playing baseball, and I actually, to be honest, I never really had any time to watch the races because I was out playing games on the weekends. But I always had that deep passion for the sport, and I've always followed it since I was a kid. And again, the same with baseball. I love NASCAR just as much as I love baseball. And but it always surprised. But whenever I had these conversations about people, I know, recently, I tell people yeah, I'm going to school for sport management, and hopefully by the time I graduate, I want to get a job either working in NASCAR or baseball. I kind of get whenever I bring up NASCAR, I kind of get a funny look, because they look at me like, oh wow, NASCAR, that's very. I mean, I don't really like people that watch NASCAR or even work in NASCAR, but
I'm surprised you didn't get the head tilt. What?
Yeah, I mean, but I would tell people no, you would be surprised. I mean, there is NASCAR is starting to come up in diversity more. There's
even in the pit crews and the crew chief.
Oh yeah,
I'm just
definitely.
Wow, this is great.
I mean, yeah, I see some Black folk working in pit crews, and yeah, I mean, you see it, but again, it's not being captured that much. But when I was having my conversation with my professor yesterday, she told me. Well, actually, no, she told me this before. She actually works in the training part for officials for NASCAR's Drive for Diversity program. She works on the race official side, as far as training officials that come in and they're trying to look for a job like being one of the officials in NASCAR. And yeah, she's told me
Mhm.
herself, like, yeah, like, you know, Mike Helton and Steve Phelps, like, you know, the head chairmen of NASCAR, they've been definitely trying to push for more diversity in the sport. It's just been so hard to, because the way that the media does it, the media kind of promotes NASCAR in a very negative way. Because I remember when the Kyle Larson situation happened, uh, I went to ESPN, and all ESPN was talking about was like, oh well, you know, NASCAR has kind of always been like racist in some form, but they never mentioned, like, what ESPN never mentions is their past relationship with NASCAR. Back in the 80s and back in the 90s, when NASCAR
Mhm.
was like one of the biggest sports in America, like ESPN would cover NASCAR races on a seasonal basis. I remember, like, from the early 2000s to all the way up until 2014, NASCAR would be, or like ESPN would be the broadcasting station that would cover the chase for the cup, or the NASCAR
Mhm.
playoffs as they call it now. But ever since NASCAR ended their relationship with ESPN, or it might be vice versa, maybe ESPN ended their relationship with NASCAR, because, you know, NASCAR later, after 2014, NASCAR later moved their TV contract with just both Fox Sports and NBC. But
Mhm.
ever since NASCAR ended their relationship with ESPN has had like this uh, negative promotion
Backlash.
negative promotion on NASCAR. Like, really, the only time I see NASCAR on ESPN nowadays is either when a driver wins the championship or when a racial issue happens in the sport, and that's the sad part.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is that, they're really trying to reach out to, other kinds of kids, like, hey, you can literally get paid to drive. We can teach you how to drive.
Yeah.
So why don't you just come on over? And, some of us kids, we'd be skeptical, like, hey, I don't really know if I want to drive. What if I want to pursue a career in a doctor? You can do that too. We'll help you. Just
Mm-hmm.
come on and drive with us. I mean, we can teach you how to drive. We can teach you how to fix your own car. I mean, there are so many endless possibilities. I mean, shoot, if NASCAR were to reach out to me, I would literally hit them back in a heartbeat. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no problem.
So would I.
I'm going to have to learn everything. I'm going to have to, like, relearn everything about the engine and the brake pads and, the fuel chamber and the combustion chamber as well. But still, that's like means and opportunity. And it's really cool because
Mm.
you not only get NASCAR to sponsor you, but you get sponsorships from every Fortune 500 company, including Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, AutoZone. I mean,
Yeah,
the list goes on and on and on and on and on.
you,
Even Eminem,
you
not the
know,
rapper.
yeah, you know, I've actually wanted to speak on that too. I mean, could you imagine if, like, we had more diversity in NASCAR? I mean, imagine if you had like a young cool black kid coming up. I mean, like, I'll use this guy for an example. So
Okay.
I actually used a picture of this kid that's been coming up through the NASCAR rankings through their Drive for Diversity program for a
Mm-hmm.
case study project I was doing in my sport management class. The kid's name is actually his name is Rajah Caruth. He's an 18-year-old kid. He actually just graduated from high school. He's from Washington D.C. and
Wait, didn't he race in the Rookie Cup series for the what was it?
he was racing
Uh,
he was racing legend cars. Like, well, yeah,
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 that one.
he was racing legend cars. Like, I think he still does, but yeah, like, yeah, he's been coming up through the NASCAR rankings pretty slowly, and like, yeah, he's like, he's still a kid. He's 18. He's about to go to college, but
Mm-hmm.
but how he got his start in NASCAR was through iRacing. And for any NASCAR fans that are watching or that are listening, for the past few months, since the COVID-19 pandemic started, NASCAR has been able to still produce content through the iRacing simulator that actually has been around since about the late 2000s when it got initiated, and then it started to, like,
Mm-hmm.
grow popularity around the world. It wasn't just NASCAR that was partnering up with iRacing. It was like other, like, racing leagues around the world, like IndyCar, IMSA, Formula One,
Formula One.
like the VA Supercar Series in Australia, like every, or like even like World of Outlaw, like the Sprint Car Series, like all the major,
Mm-hmm.
like you even have like major tracks like Daytona, Sebring, Le Mans, like even like all the major tracks around the world, they've been partnering with iRacing to kind of grow the brand of motorsports as a whole. And you even have drivers that are coming up through they're actually using iRacing as a tool to help them, like study tracks or like get practice time in, because
Mm-hmm.
like NASCAR it's already a very expensive sport to get in to begin with. I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
it's almost kind of like baseball in a sense. I mean, like with me growing up playing baseball in some cases has been like a pay to play sport where you kind of have to pay your way in to play on like the top travel teams, and spend like over $100 and like thousands of dollars going to showcases and going to combines to get seen and get recruited by colleges. With NASCAR, is kind of the same thing. You have to have like.
Especially dirt bike racing too. You have to
Mhm.
literally get a license just to start racing by the time you're like maybe 8 or 9.
You also have to get sponsorships too. I mean, the one thing that's going to keep you at the top in any form of racing is sponsorships, and you do that by network.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like one of my goals is to try to get Rajah to come on our podcast so I can have a talk with him. But
That would be awesome.
yeah, I mean, like I would really hope if we could get him on, like that would be so dope. But but yeah, like NASCAR has kind of always been that
Matter of
sport where you
fact,
have to kind of pay your way in, where you know you you have to like get sponsors, and like the only way you're gonna fund the race team is through the sponsorship money that's that your sponsors are gonna invest in. And like if you're not, well, actually no, let me backtrack. Like the investment of the sponsor is what's going to help you compete and what's going to help you stick around the sport. And
and everybody knows that sponsorships also, kind of help cover the cost of like equipment
mhm.
and engine replacements as well, especially when you're doing body and fender work. That's going to take like time. And sometimes it could take less than 2 weeks.
Oh yeah. Hmm. Yeah, like but what iRacing has actually been allowed to do is actually been kind of eliminating that process of like kind of having like a grassroots format of like start building your race team from the ground up through sponsorship money alone. What
Mm-hmm.
iRacing is allowed to do is it actually allowed for these big name race teams like Joe Gibbs Racing, like Hendrick Motorsports, Stuart Haas, Junior Motorsports, a few other big name racing teams. It is actually iRacing has actually allowed those teams to go out and recruit like well known iRacing drivers. I mean, NASCAR was actually able to establish its own like its own affiliation series just for iRacing. I mean, like there's iRacing drivers that that are like being titled as pro like iRacing drivers through esports. Like
Mm-hmm.
esports has actually been very involved in motorsports, like well, particularly NASCAR, and trying to just grow the sport to a younger audience, and even trying to like build more diverse. I mean, there's a few black drivers that I know that are coming up through NASCAR through iRacing. And like and what iRacing does, it kind of allows for drivers that want to aim for a career racing in motorsports. It's allowing them to get more exposure and also show their talent of what they can do behind the wheel. And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's like if that's where the sport is going
And
to
it
be
gives
going.
them more promotion too.
Yeah, and I feel like if that's what the sport is going to be going as far as recruiting drivers, then they just have to keep it going, because like one driver for example William Byron. William Byron,
Mm.
he drives a 24 car for Hendrick Motorsports, and he's also a student at Liberty University. He he said himself that he didn't grow up in racing in particular. Like he didn't know anybody. Like usually, like another thing about racing too is that you kind of have to know somebody to get into the sport. It's either you have like a distant relative that runs a race team, or maybe like you're a second generation or a third generation driver that's trying to get a start in the sport, and like if you have like a name like Petty or like Earnhardt or Gordon, that could kind of you know like build like give you the pathway into trying to get like a big name ride. And but yeah, but I feel like it's being very different, and also like just to relate it to trying to get more diversity in NASCAR, like for black drivers that are trying to get in. You know, iRacing is really going to be the key for them because you know, like with you know, like just with like any situation, like with any sport, you know, there's you know, you have these black kids coming up, and you know, like they come from impoverished backgrounds, and you know, like they have families that probably can't fund them as much as far as participation in sport. But I feel like for NASCAR to grow their diversity talent pool, they need to put a more emphasis on iRacing as far as recruiting drivers. I mean, like you give a kid like you give a kid a steering wheel, a computer, and some pedals. Like trust me, like you have them, like you start them young, like they're gonna love it, and they're gonna want to.
Oh,
They're
absolutely.
gonna want to do
They're
it.
just going to think of it as another video game.
Right. It is a video game, but it's a video game in a sense where it can help you build a career in racing.
I mean, I think that's the best idea that anyone could have ever developed. I mean, iRacing is kind of like, you know, that nice little starter point. It's kind of like a building block on your way up. And it might not be as quick as you want it to, but at least you're doing something.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? To pursue that kind of career, especially, you know, dealing with cars that are damn near aerodynamically flying.
Mm-hmm.
Like pretty much damn near. I mean, the engines that they work on are superb, especially Toyota. I mean, Chevy, they can use a little work, but Toyota, they actually have a fuel efficiency software that actually includes the algorithm of how much fuel can be consumed from one lap.
That I didn't know.
I didn't know that either. I mean, I was doing research last night. I didn't even go to sleep till like 5 a.m. And I was just like, wow, really? This is really cool. And the models of their car, you know, there's like a little bit of steel, but you also have to think about, you know, a little bit of copper as well. So it's kind of like a mix, so that way a car can be lighter and you can just get a far faster rate in half the time.
Yeah, I see that. But yeah, you know, I feel like for the sport to grow, they kind of have to have like that grassroots upbringing through like technology, just with iRacing. And you know, because it's like any other sport. I mean, like every other sport, like you know, say football, like you start off playing Pop Warner, and then like you kind of grow your way up into playing high school, and then hopefully college, and you make your way to the pros. Or like for baseball, you know, first time baseball, you know, like it's T-ball, then you know go up to little league, and then hopefully you're playing high school, then college, and the pros, or basketball, you know, you grow up playing AAU. I feel like for NASCAR to reach out to a much more younger population, just to still increase their talent pool through certain aspects, not so much the, you know, like just the family association that some drivers do have, but for the drivers that probably don't know much about NASCAR, but want to learn more about it, like get them on iRacing, and definitely, like, you know, even for STEM, like for students that are, you know, in high school right now, or that are in college, that are like in STEM programs and going for school for that. I mean, like NASCAR is a sport that's built around engineering and built around science and technology. And, you know, like even mathematics. I mean, like with engineering, you know, there's some math that's involved. Like it's a number sport too. But yeah, you know, I feel like you just kind of have to have that bigger emphasis on just the engineering side as well as the youthful side, because I know like video games, that's a big market right now for youth. And yeah, and like NASCAR, they could use iRacing as a tool to build off that video game market, and like getting more diverse faces, recruiting more diverse drivers, and just getting the name out there. And like they've been already so, yeah.
And the more youth that come into NASCAR racing, the more promotion that they're gonna get to a younger crowd, to a younger audience, and the more interest that's gonna come into the NASCAR organization. So that's like and you get more diversity within the programs as well. So that's already a given, especially when you're trying to progress.
Right. But yeah, I actually kind of also want to go into just like maybe a few updates that are going on in the NASCAR world. I know like for this weekend, NASCAR is going down to Atlanta. They're doing the Xfinity race and the Cup Series race down there. I know tomorrow the Xfinity race is happening, and like also Sunday that's the Cup Series race. Both go broadcasted on Fox. So if you have Fox, make sure to check it out. But yeah, like my two guys, Noah Gragson and Chase Elliott. Noah Gragson's going to be on the pole for the Xfinity Series, and Chase Elliott's going to be on the pole for the Cup Series, all by luck of the draw. So yeah, that's going to be big, and yeah, and I feel like Chase Elliott, he's already developed a bit of a rivalry with Kyle Busch in some way.
Oh yeah, Kyle's definitely gonna crush him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like Chase Elliott, he's been on the up lately. I mean, like ever since Kyle Busch wrecked him at Darlington a few weeks back, Chase Elliott was actually able to bounce back with a win last week at Charlotte. And yeah, well, Kyle Busch, he's been kind of falling back lately. You know, he hasn't really been having that many good top fives, that many good top 10 finishes. He hasn't even won a race yet, and he's kind of almost at that cut line of the playoffs. And you know, obviously, like with the Cup Series, first 16 drivers make it into the playoffs, and yeah, and like and just you know, with the playoff system being in format for like the past five going on 6 years, you know, it's going to be crazy. And you know, like I feel like Chase Elliott, like he has the car for it. He's already been getting some speed, and you know, Atlanta kind of being his hometown track. Like Chase Elliott, he's from Dawsonville, Georgia, like about 4 hours away from Atlanta. So it's going to be a hometown, like a homecoming race for him. And yeah, you know, I feel like you know he could come out with a win there, or maybe at least you know come out with a top 10. And yeah, you know, like yeah, I feel like this is NASCAR's year. Like even with COVID-19 happening, you know, like I feel like NASCAR has been doing a great job. They've actually been putting on some really good races. I mean, like what I was expecting is that I was expecting like guys to be kind of rusty because you know they've been spending the past 3 months playing a video game. But again, I feel like that their iRacing experience is kind of
that just gave them more practice.
Yeah, like their iRacing involvement has kind of been transferring over to the racetrack, like the actual racetrack. And yeah, man, you know, I feel like this is a good year for NASCAR.
Absolutely. And I'm actually hoping to see like the next Daytona too. I'm really hoping to like see the next Daytona because whoever wins that one, hopefully Jeff Gordon, if he's not retired, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, now that NASCAR is starting to like open back up, I'm starting to see, you know, a really bright future for the new upcoming NASCAR drivers as well, especially the rookies.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like yeah, there's been some young guys getting some speed recently. Actually, one guy that I kind of want to highlight is Alex Bowman. He's he like 88 car race for Hendrick Motorsports. Yeah, Alex Bowman, like he actually got a win earlier this year. Like this was pre-COVID. He got the win at Auto Club, and yeah, it was only his second career win. I mean, like back in 2018, he got his first career win. Actually, no. Yeah, it was 2019, 2018. He got his first career win at Chicagoland. And yeah, you know, he's been picking up some speed. And I feel like as far as the championship four is laid out, Alex Bowman, he's going to be like the wild card for the championship four. It's like he's a wild card because, you know, there's a chance that obviously he's going to have a good run in the playoffs. But as far as the championship four is concerned, it's going to be hit or miss if he can stay consistent with the top fives and the stage wins and, you know, just with his track performance, if he can make it into the championship four going into Phoenix later on in the year. But yeah, you know, like yeah, I feel like he's a guy to watch out for, you know, for all the other guys that are trying to get into compete for a championship this year. And yeah, and like yeah, it's been standings have actually been looking pretty interesting. I feel like this is going to be a good year for the playoffs because you know you got guys like a lot of young guys that are starting to come up. You got some seasoned veterans starting to, you know, like go after another championship. I know Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, Joe Pagano, like those are like the key veterans that are in the championship or playoff contention right now. And you know, you even got a few young guys that are still kind of growing the Cup Series, like Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, and yeah, like yeah, there's some guys that are coming up, and yeah, I feel like this is going to be a very interesting playoff for NASCAR in the Cup Series side.
Absolutely. And NASCAR, this year it's gonna be on a pretty good standing. So I can only imagine how the playoffs are gonna turn out. I mean, these guys have had enough time and pretty much enough essence, enough energy to go on iRacing and just start practicing on the track. I mean, given the fact that they can practice on iRacing, that's just gonna enhance the strategies even more, and it's gonna be a pretty clean race. Now that I can see.
Yeah, I mean, like yeah, Atlanta's a bit of a rough track. I mean, it's it's a little bit bumpy. I know actually earlier today I was watching the because like what was a cool thing that NASCAR does on their Instagram account, like for every weekend when they have a race, they always bring in a driver that's had some experience at the track or has had like a win in the past at the track, and they actually do get them on iRacing and kind of give them they run like two or three practice laps and kind of give viewers and fans an insight of what the track feels like, and while they're actually turning laps on the simulator, they're describing like what's the surface of the track like, or like which lines are better to run, like what do you like about the track, what do you don't like about the track, and yeah, they give a lot of insight about the track that they're racing at, and also promoting iRacing at the same time, and it definitely shows.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely kind of also promotes the realism that iRacing has compared to real life racing, and I feel like that's one thing to promote as well when you're trying to recruit these drivers, or when you're trying to encourage a more people of color that want to get into the sport some way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, it's just great that NASCAR is finally opening up again and it's starting to try to, reach out to like the overall population of the crowd and the different kind of youth, because everyone deserves an opportunity no matter what background you come from. Because NASCAR is full of people from all walks of life. So I say go for it.
No, yeah,
Just go for it.
definitely. Yeah. And
Oh man. Do we still have time?
we can rack up pretty soon. Like there's a few other stuff that also want to highlight. Oh
Yeah, go ahead.
I know like well probably for the past few races, there obviously there hasn't been any fans coming to the racetrack, but I
Mm-hmm.
actually found out that this week, when they do race at Homestead, I think Homestead is going to be after Atlanta, so Homestead's going to be the following week. They're actually allowing fans back at the track. So,
Well, hey, that's great.
actually, but there's a catch to this. So, they will allow fans, but it's going to be limited. So, but what Homestead's planning to do, they're planning to allow 500 military veterans and their families at the racetrack for the Homestead race.
Yeah, but wouldn't they all have to wear masks even when in close proximity?
I believe so. Again, like I think they're going to be basing it off the laws that are like the social distancing laws that are put in place in Florida. They're probably going to be basing it off of that. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, like it's good that there's going to be some faces in the crowd. But I don't know. You kind of have to think about what's going to be put into place as far as social distancing. But yeah, I think that's good. And well, in addition to that, Nashville Super Speedway is actually going to be hosting a Cup race next year on the 2021 season. So,
I mean, that's a pretty good track. Ooh wee.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, yeah, like,
damn
actually,
good track.
oh yeah, it's one heck of a track. I gotta say that I've actually been watching some highlights of races at Nashville in the past, and yeah, I feel like the Cup Series that's a perfect track to do it at, and I like, especially with the racing package that they have there already, it's already going to be pretty good. So yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, I can't wait to see that. Hopefully, we'll get to watch it together, man. Hopefully.
Hopefully that does happen, man. Hopefully that does happen. But yeah, but yeah, like I guess we could wrap it up there, and yeah, man, yeah, it's great seeing you again. Great having you on.
It
Again,
was great seeing you too, man.
it's good
It's
to
good
have
to be back.
it's good to have the other half of the Real Deal Bros back on. And yeah, man, yeah, like definitely look forward to doing more episodes with you in the future. Yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, man. I can't wait to do more. And we'll definitely come up with more content together as well. So, hey, don't forget to like and subscribe and comment and tell us what you think. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. I'm
mm-hmm.
Terrell Bird, and this is my main man, Philip Paul. And together, we are the Real Deal Bros.
Yep. And as
Y'all
always,
have yourselves a great day, man.
yep. And as always, make sure to keep it real.
Absolutely.